going to call the committee of the whole meeting for Tuesday, January 9th to order. Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchek,
Here.
Alderman Talaco, Alderman Meyer,
Here.
Alderman Hansher,
Here.
Alderman Bach,
Here.
Alderman Parrish,
Here.
Alderman Schneider, Alderman Gebhardt,
Here.
and Mayor Nervin.
Here. Let me know if the volume's okay. I had a group of Cub Scouts in here last Friday, and they were mucking with all the volume controls and having a good time having a little mock council meeting. So if it sounds okay, just let me know. If it doesn't, I'll make some adjustments. First up, we have approval of the meeting minutes from December 12th.
Move approval. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any comments, questions, corrections for the minutes? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. Our next item is a discussion item. It's an update on the status of the Management Partners Community Development Operational Analysis Action Plan. And Director Tollison's going to give us a presentation on where things are at there.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. We're doing an overview of the operational analysis that was done by Management Partners. Their final report was concluded in fall of 2021. So it really centered on, Okay, it's centered on 3 goals. Okay, 3 goals. All right. So it centered really on 3 primary goals. We provided in the staff report the action plan matrix, and we tried to identify those that we've completed, those that we're making progress on, and those that have not been started yet. Those weren't really grouped, I guess, by any, category of goals, so that's what I tried to do with just the presentation, but we can talk about anything that you'd like to. But the primary goals here are the enterprise land management system that really is much farther reaching than just community development. It's really, you think about it as project management tracking, so since there's so much interdependence between planning, inspections, engineering, water utility, assessor's office, payments with finance, public notices with clerk's office, it will be really far-reaching and impactful to the entire organization. Another category was application processes and materials, so just upgrading materials, information, trying to be as transparent and informative to our applicants as possible about expectations. A third category was really facility and spatial upgrades, and then lastly, investment in adaptive and the next generation of staff. Now that's not to discount current staff, and I guess I've kind of coined the term the next generation of staff. We have a pending vacancy and we have a potential retirement coming. We've overhauled the inspections division with new staff, kind of homegrown, our inspectors, so that this has been a continuous effort on our part, and I think it will continue to be as we move forward over the next decade. So that first primary goal of the ELMS system, the report indicated that it was really a high priority to invest in that technology. Many of the conveniences that are afforded to applicants both in other communities in southeastern Wisconsin, but just in general larger cities, is not something that's being afforded to Mequon applicants. And that's just, again, touching on transparency, access to information about the cycle of time that it takes to get through, also just really the status of where their applications might be. And in the absence of that land management system, there is a reduction in our ability to be analytical and track information and report building. So what I've done here is what's in black under the categories is what we've been able to accomplish with ELMS, and then everything in the blue is what's identified in the report but not yet accomplished. So within the ELMS, the report talks about procurement and then implementation. So the city has contracted with a firm to help us develop the request for the proposal. This was an opportunity to bring key staff members together and then map out really what our processes are for entitlement, start to finish, and then again that interdependence between departments and divisions. That was kicked off in 2022, and we are going to in early 2024 get back to working with those consultants. That will require the development of the RFP, procuring a vendor as well as the system, and full training, and then ongoing training, maintenance, and monitoring of not only the data, but how the program's working for us, and report building. There's also a recommendation to develop a cost recovery plan. So I think there's been discussion about a technology fee, some other concepts that have been thrown out there. The benefits really of this are consolidated information regarding the entitlement process, being interactive on our website with applications and payments, online scheduling for inspections or staff meetings, and then a portal really for not only staff but the public as well as applicants to find out where their project is, with which department, what details are being acknowledged, what if anything else is needed as part of the project. It also allows people to update. So even like in the inspections division, someone gets a new license number, state license number, they can automatically populate that. This also will address, and it's identified often in the report and throughout the recommendations, storage of plans in digital form instead of paper form. That will assist with retrieval, routing, and again, data-driven results. The tracking of these cycle times is not only to be transparent with our applicants, but also to be transparent about staff's performance of meeting those cycle times. The second primary goal was really process materials and spatial needs. The quote from the final report indicated that we are consumed with manual processes. The manual processes combined with the staff size does result in delays for higher priority work and policy initiatives that the city may want to take on. So again, everything in black is what we've been able to work through and accomplish. Process and implementation side of the house, we have worked through architectural review and design standards. We have worked through revisions of Planning Commission application materials. So at least those two sets of full packages in terms of information that's going out to the public are refreshed. In both of those cases, there have been some efficiencies created. You're going to see next month a text amendment related to the architectural review. It's shifting some of that review process administratively to staff instead of the architectural review board. That means we can get customers in and out quicker and moving on with their permits and constructions and generating revenue in a quicker fashion as well. We do offer, but we've been able to highlight in these materials multiple access points for project information related to process and what staff needs are. So pre and post Planning Commission process, there is a lot of opportunity for either the applicant, developer, or just interested public to interject themselves and learn more about that process. We have on the Planning Division side received materials both pre and post Planning Commission in electronic format, so we're storing those all electronically. In 2024, the Inspections Division will take on that objective and start getting all of their plans in electronically. Some of you probably know, maybe some of our newer council members do not know, the city has retained all single-family residential development plans, all of them. So it is nice customer service to be able to provide to architects or homeowners to be able to come in and get their plans from their home from 1987 if they're thinking about an addition or redoing the bathroom. But that is a huge amount of paper storage. We actually last year contacted a company that would retrieve all of those plans, digitize them for us, code them, store them on an external hard drive until we can get up and running with ELMS, which will be a while, and then dispose of all of those plans for us. That fee came in at just under $400,000, and that's just to deal with the single family plan development. So we have work to do on what the game plan should be for storage. We've got some ideas that we can bring back to subcommittees or the council about how we can maybe start streamlining some of that and offering those plans up to homeowners, and maybe they want to store them instead of us storing them in the future. One of the other things related to process and implementation was monitoring inspections outcomes. There was a critique from the public that despite having a near final inspection, inspectors would go out and there would be a new set of problems or issues found on the site. So our new inspections supervisor has really focused on that in the past year. We have new inspectors, so I think it was a great opportunity, for him to be able to give guidance and try to overcome that. From what I understand, that has somewhat been resolved. So that's good news to report out. Finance department has worked on debit and credit card intake. The two things that have not been further pursued are those storage needs for all of the paper copies that we have. And then there was discussion about interactive space with stakeholders. I do think, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of upgrades to our conference rooms, and so it does allow for a lot of interactive conversations and being able to look at plans and GIS. But this talked about interactive space and better use of the atrium and lobby. Another spatial discussion in the report was maybe repositioning where DCD is located in City Hall to provide greater access and room to some offices and a little bit more space for plan reviews. The last one was primary goal of kind of next generation staffing. The management partners report did indicate that there are many things that are working well, and our employees are skilled, knowledgeable, responsive, and helpful. So what we continue to do, and especially with new staff members, is we continue to train, make sure we're getting certifications done. There is a lot of cross-training among employees, but also across divisions. And we have worked to develop smaller teams of staff members to be able to execute some of those administrative approvals and be really efficient with those actions. So the Architectural Review Board, again, is a good example. We're going to be shifting from the review board reviewing and approving some of these structures to staff. By developing that smaller internal team, Jack and I would have the history of what's been acceptable or what are community sensitive design issues to the newer staff. So we're kind of passing along those values. We're, at the same time kind of training those new staff members on code requirements, where to find things in the code, and actually evaluating the plans associated with those. The three areas related to staffing that were identified in the report was a planning coordinator, so that there would be a point person for anybody in the public who wanted to better understand where their project was in the process and help troubleshoot. So if ELMS, isn't giving them all the information they need, or if they land at the counter, we've got someone who knows where to direct them into what staff and kind of guide them through that process. And then identifying a point of contact for complex projects. We have done that in the past, especially with some recent town center projects, the Schaefer development, where there was multiple different building components to that, and a variety of inspections. We did pinpoint, at least one planning staff member and one inspections member. So that development team, the architect, the contractors, always had somebody, the same person to go to. And in some of those cases too, we've actually done, bi-weekly meetings with the teams to help make sure those are coordinated. And then there is pointing out the need for a planning analyst for the ELMS system to make sure we're inputting data correctly, it's being monitored and maintained. So in terms of a summary, there were 32 overall recommendations. 17 of those 32 recommendations were related to ELMS or ELMS adjacent. As I mentioned, we kicked that process off in 2022. Out of the 32, there were about 26 that were identified as priority status, you know, at the ultimate high level 1 or 2. 10 of those have been completed through 2023. 15 of those, though, are related to ELMS. So it's hard for us to say that we have accomplished, you know, those priority status recommendations when we're not far enough along on the ELMS. And ELMS outcomes will affect some of the recommendations as it relates to staff, training, and then some of the things that we're asked to do web-based, like providing, you know, a coordinated page just related to development. So while it's outside of just community development's responsibility, it would land on a more generic page so somebody can understand the entitlement process from start to finish. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions you have or anything related to timing.
Thanks for the update. Not all of us were here when this process kicked off. Does anyone have any questions about the front end that initiated this? I think it was just a general need to identify ways to be more efficient with our time and have a little better customer service with our clientele. Sure, Alderman Bach.
I wasn't here when it was initiated, but I think it's great work. I mean, it's nice to see when a consultant comes in, you take the report and then look at that report and then create goals and action steps and actually follow through on that. Too often, sometimes consultants come in and there's not a lot of follow-up. So I think, I mean, there's a ton of work there. What's the timeline on that? It sounds like the 17 EMLS. How soon or what's the timeline on that?
If you had seen the original plan, it would be done already. But for a variety of reasons, it's pushed out. But I think 2024 is going to be a big year, which is why we're refreshing this item for everyone. So.
Yeah. We've talked about getting together a small internal working group that has representatives from different departments, right? And getting back together with the consultant that helped us map out what we've been able to share with them with the development to date. And that's going to put them in a position to be able to get the RFP out on the street. And then I think, you know, the real world work will start to pick up.
So this is the year. I think part of it is we have to start expending the ARPA money that's
Yes.
going to pay for the enterprise land management system, so the software. So this is the year of action, and I'm glad your number came out the same as mine. I came up with 17 as well when I was reviewing it. Back at you know, it's over half of the recommendations were tied to that aspect of it. So that's why the overall numbers don't look so good, because a lot of them are tied to, you know, one item. Any other questions from the committee? Everyone's happy with the update. We're going to hear a lot about this item throughout the year, so good for everyone just to start with an understanding of where we're at now, especially since, you know, maybe half of us weren't there when this journey started. So, any other questions for Director Tollefson? If not, we'll move on to our next item, which is informational items. It's our planning calendar for committee of the whole meetings. Now is a good time to, if there's items that need to move around on the calendar, to bring them up, or if there's any items that are missing. Alderwoman Tlaco.
I would request the April 9th meeting, floodway zoning, be moved to a later date. I'll have a lot to input in that, and I will not physically be able to be at that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Bach.
Maybe we could make a swap on that one, because I would be interested in moving the bluff construction sooner. I know it was originally a January, and then in December I saw that it was in March, but the city administrator reminded me that it's a flexible schedule, and I apologize, I was unaware of that. But that, ever since the Vermont Park structure was built, that floating bridge, I had one request from somebody along the lake shore that really spurred this to get this on the agenda. And then, unbeknownst to me, another resident submitted a request to staff, of which it was denied. And then I think there was an appeal committee last week, and he was unsuccessful. So I know that person is willing, wants to get to work on this and would like an answer. So for those reasons, it would be great if we could have that discussion a little bit earlier.
We will look to move that up to either March or April at the very latest.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Alderman Parrish.
Thank you, Mayor. I see that in February we were discussing South Central zoning options, which I assume is all the land contiguous to the industrial park, which some of you may know I've had concerns about rezoning some of that to residential in the past. My concern with the way that we are looking at this is I feel like it's a little bit in a vacuum, in the sense that I don't think we should rezone the South Central land until we're further along with the Southwest Industrial Park. And there's a lot of missing data there, especially the legal review, especially water capacity. And if it is determined that it makes no sense to do an industrial park on the southwest side of town, I think it's just a huge mistake to continue down this path of rezoning the center of town. It's like, how big do we need to be?
Hold
So-
those thoughts from when we talk about it in February.
Yeah, so I guess my request is, as staff prepares the packet, though, I mean, to try to give some sensitivity to that, like what, if we're going to residential, like what kind of density are you talking about in the South Central? And
I think that's the topic of the
Yeah,
meeting, to get
so-
input on that. And so I think you won't be totally disappointed in what we might
Okay.
talk about in February, but
okay, well, I'd love to have that water legal review soon, so I could kind of come to my final conclusions on swapping these areas. Thank you.
so staff tuck that one away, and if we need to move it a little bit to get some more info, we can do that. But without having the February meeting now,
Yeah, I'd love to delay it.
good to have the input up front. Any other feedback on the calendar? Hearing and seeing none. And we can have feedback at any time, not just here. But hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn so we can start the council meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned.